Hey there, Fletcher from All Things Overlanding here, and today I wanted to talk about, as I'm sitting out here in 90-degree heat in the summer, my 3 favorite pieces of summer overlanding / camping gear. So if you wanted to kind of get some tips or some ideas, especially if you're newer to overlanding or more like remote dispersed camping, I wanted to talk a little bit about just a few pretty budget-minded, pretty inexpensive pieces of gear that after years and years and tons of pieces of gear, these are things that I still use all the time that have made a big impact on my trips. So again, just wanted to take 3 things that I really love and share them with you guys in hopes that it will help make your trips better and make you love overlanding and camping even more. So if you want to hear what my 3 favorite pieces of gear are for summer camping and overlanding, stay tuned.
Understand where it came from, but you got it, my got it. It began in the land of the sandstorm. I fought it, though I wanted everything to do with what you give to me. Loosening my grip.
All right, so as I mentioned in the intro today, I'm talking about my 3 favorite pieces of overlanding gear for summer camping. Now, I'm just going to kind of go one by one. There's 3 different pieces that I picked, and in my opinion, these are things that I've used for a long time and I really like, and they have changed my summer trips. So again, I wanted to share stuff that would both give you ideas, but don't feel like you have to just run out and buy all this stuff, right? But if you do like this stuff, feel free. I'll put links in the description down below. But again, hopefully it just gets you some ideas for ways to improve your camping trips, especially in the summer. So let's start with piece of gear number 1, which is my sort of no name. I think this one's called Dive Blues Turbo Fan. Now this thing is super cool. It is just it's got a built-in battery. It is a little turbo fan. Now I've had 8, 9, 10 different fans throughout my camping career, if you will. And most of them have been those sort of cheap Coleman style ones that have like a little adjustable arm, so you could like sort of set them beside you and tilt them or hang them from like above you in your tent, let's say. But they don't blow very much air. Their battery doesn't last that long. A lot of those take D batteries or C batteries, so it's like a weird, odd battery, and they're not rechargeable. Nowadays, there are a lot that are rechargeable, but again, most of those, my problem has been they don't actually move air. This little Dive Blues turbo fan moves a ton of air. It's got, like I said, a built-in battery, so you can recharge it. You don't have to worry about putting in C batteries or finding weird batteries. You can just recharge the thing. It's got just one button, so it makes it super simple to use. You just push this, and when you push it once, it's going to go to 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5. And as you can hear, I mean, it does move a lot of air. So like when you are hot and you're laying in your rooftop tent and you're like, man, I wish that it wasn't so miserable. Something like this makes a huge difference, right? With those old fans that I mentioned, they're a pain in the butt. They don't really sit right. You can't get them to adjust to be blowing on you. Sometimes you hang them from above and they kind of sway back and forth and they don't actually blow on you. The thing that I like about this is this head is adjustable. So it does come with lanyards too, and these little side bits on here, you can put a lanyard in there, so you could wear this on your chest and point it up. Or what I do most of the time is I will lay this beside me in my rooftop tent. I will angle it up so it's facing right onto my face, right? And I will turn it on and I'll just leave it there. I'll just set it there. I can angle it exactly where I want it to be. It will last for a really long time. I don't know the actual time, but I've never had it die on me overnight. I usually put it on like 2 or 3, so I won't put it on the highest setting, but I won't put it on the lowest setting either. And it's just awesome, right? Like it actually, you can feel the wind on your face. This has alleviated for me a lot of the need for, like, I do have a Zero Breeze AC unit, but I only get about 5 or 6 hours max out of that thing. So it's the same sort of situation, right? Where it's like, yeah, it's air conditioned cool air, but you got to bring a power bank. You got to bring all the hoses. It's a big thing. Whereas I can bring this little tiny thing, or I actually keep this in my drawer system. So I have it 24/7. I take it out in the winter, but in the summer, I keep this thing in here for about 5 or 6 months in a row. And I can just grab this thing and put it in my tent and I'm good to go. So that is definitely a game-changing piece of gear. Again, there will be links to all these pieces of gear in the description below if you do want one of these. But again, hopefully it just gives you ideas, right? So next, my next favorite is my Flex Tail tiny repeller. This thing is amazing. It comes with this really nice little case. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this. But in the case, there is the tiny repel itself, which is just a tiny little bug repeller. It comes with a USB-C cord for charging, and then, you know, they give you these sort of like mats, they call them, but they have like an essential oil in them, and this thing just heats up these mats, and then that essential oil kind of goes around you in like a 15 to 30 foot radius, and it keeps the bugs away. The bugs don't like it, so they just don't come near you. And it works. It's amazing. It's also tiny, hence the name Tiny Repel. So if you were watching again on YouTube, you can kind of see this thing in my hand. Like, it is just a little tiny guy, but it's got a magnet built into the bottom of it so that you can, you know, slap it on the side of your vehicle. I've used this at like expos and stuff where I'm sitting beside my truck with my awning out, and I'll just put it on the truck behind me with a magnet, and it just keeps all the bugs away. It's also got a built-in lantern. It's also rechargeable using USB-C. It's got a little hook on top of it so you can hang it in your tent, or again, under your awning or something like that if you wanted to. It's really simple to operate. It's really simple to maintain. You just swap these mats out. Like, I think it says that they'll go for a long time. I'm still on my first set of mats, and I've used this for the last like 4 months, and you get 10 in a pack. So again, this thing is just amazing. It's a game changer. I historically have despised going in the summer, but now thanks to this thing and that tiny fan and some of the other gear that I use, it makes it much better. So again, I'm going to turn this on, I'm going to put it beside me, and I'm going to use this while I'm recording this video just so that no bugs mess with me. All right, so now we're getting into our third and final piece of gear. Now, there are a lot more pieces of gear that are important, but people like lists, and people also don't want to hear me ramble on about 20 different things. So I wanted to narrow it down to 3 and just sort of focus on those things. So the tiny repeller is awesome, the turbo fan is awesome, but the other thing is my Jetboil Genesis. And I have the base camp version of this. This is a tiny folding stove, okay? And the thing about it is, I've had a number of stoves. And you may be asking, like, well, why is a stove? Like, what do you care about a stove in the summer? And here's the thing is, in winter, I go mostly in late fall and then through winter. And in winter, it's really cold, like so cold that you lose the dexterity in your hands are freezing up. It's not as much fun to be outside in the winter, right? So like, we will go and we'll hit trails all day and stuff. We'll come back, we'll maybe sit around a fire for a little bit, but like, I don't typically want to cook as much. I don't want to do like a full-fledged feast in winter. But in the summer, I like to cook. But because I've had crappy stoves in the past, it's kind of been more of a hindrance than it's been good, right? So when you have a crappy stove and you don't have a good experience, or it's a mess, or it's a disaster, or you don't have control over it, and you can't really cook very well on it, it makes you not want to cook, right? If you don't have a good stove system, if you don't have a good cooking system, good pots and pans, then for me at least, I've like historically just avoided cooking altogether in the summer because I don't like my stove setup, or it's too big, or it's too bulky, or it's, you know, it's too hard to control, and I'm burning all my food and it's not good. So again, when I don't really cook in the winter, the propane doesn't work as well in the winter. That is when I will hit up a little pub or something in town. When I go up to like Wisconsin or Michigan, we'll hit up like a little mom and pop shop, and we'll just have something to eat there, or we'll bring, you know, cold food that we can just eat, or Lunchables or something like that. I try and make it as easy and low effort as possible. But in the summer, like I want to cook burgers and dogs. I want to cook steaks and mashed potatoes. I want to actually cook. And until I had the Jetboil, I even though I wanted to cook, I still ended up just doing like hot dogs over a fire, or freeze-dried meals or things like that, because I was like just having such a bad experience, and everything was so disparate. Like I had a stove, but then I didn't have stuff that goes with it. This Jetboil base camp has everything you need. It's got a little skillet style pan. It's got a big old like stock pot. It's got dual burners, and they'll accept up to a 10-inch pan. So they accept really big pans and pots. And then I keep all my silverware and everything in here. So like for me, this base camp thing, again, in this relatively small package, I throw it in the drawer system in the back of my truck. It's always in the truck. I don't have to worry about remembering or forgetting things. That has really changed how fun my trips have become and how much I've enjoyed cooking. So again, cooking on the Jetboil is just great. The control is great. So I can have one turn way down and have really finite control over it. And I could be cooking some potatoes or something. And I have another one that I've got turned up a little bit more that I'm cooking meat on, and I'm, you know, cooking hot dogs or steak or whatever. So you have fine controls over stuff, and it just makes your cooking so much better. So again, the Jetboil Genesis, while a pricey unit, is an all-in-one, and I know a few people that have kind of talked to me or watched my videos on it, and I'll put a card up here to the video that I did actually reviewing this and comparing it to my old Coleman Fold and Go. If you are on the podcast, you should be able to click through that though and go watch it on YouTube if you want more info on it. But since I've switched, I have cooked so much more on the Jetboil and used it so much more than I did in the last 4 years with my other systems. And again, you might say, yeah, well, it's 4 times the cost of a Coleman stove. And that is true. But if I'm using it 4, 5, 6 times as much as I did the other one, then there's some value in that too, right? Like the fact that it is a really well-built unit, the fact that it's going to last for a long time, the fact that the controls are better, the fact that it stores down small, which is important for us overlanders when we're trying to conserve space. All that stuff is super important, and I think makes it really, really valuable for cooking, even though it is a more expensive piece of kit. All right, guys, so as you saw, those were my 3 favorite things. That tiny little fan is a game changer. I've had like 8 or 10 different fans throughout my life, and they've mostly been junk. Most of the time, they don't blow air hardly at all. They die halfway through the night. They've just been miserable. This thing lasts for a really long time. It really moves air. It actually makes a difference in how happy you are when you're sleeping at night. It's easy to set up beside you. It's easy to adjust so that it's blowing on your face versus a lot of the other ones. That you have to kind of like hang from a rope and then they're spinning around and they're not actually pointing at you. So I really, really love that thing. And for 20, 30 bucks, it's such a steal. The tiny repeller is also amazing. I didn't believe it was going to work. I did not believe it was going to work. And now that I've used it for probably 4 or 5 months now, this whole summer, I will never go camping in the summer without it again because the bugs are just miserable. I'm using it right now and you can tell there's nothing flying around me. It's been amazing. And then the Genesis Base Camp, again, another game changer. Yes, it's a pricey piece of kit, but I've had 3 or 4 different stoves over the last 5 or 6 years, and they've broken or they get rusty or they get gross or they get sticky and nasty. They are harder to use. They don't give you nearly as much control over your burners. And so for me, especially the fact that it has a really small footprint and I can keep it in my drawers and just pop it out when I need it and put it back when I don't, is really, really convenient, and the quality of it is just phenomenal. So I really love cooking with that. It actually makes me want to cook more, which is a side effect of it being a really good stove. So again, I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, click that like button. If you're not already subscribed to the channel and you're watching on YouTube, click the subscribe button and the bell to be notified down below when new videos drop. I do a couple every week of podcasts like this and then other gear videos. If you're on the podcast, of course, you get the podcasts there, but you're missing out on all the gear videos that I do, the DIY modifications, the Nissan stuff that I do. So definitely consider clicking through the link below to go over to YouTube and follow along there as well. If you're enjoying the podcast, leave a 5-star review. Drop it into your favorites. All that stuff helps other people know that it's a good podcast, and I appreciate it. Also in the description below are links to all my other social channels, so wherever you want to come hang out, I'd love to have you. There's also a link to my website where I've got funny overlanding camping themed patches and stickers. I've got all things overlanding merch. I've got Don't Burn Your Wiener and It's a Hot Dog, or I Hate People So I Camp, so definitely click through that link and check those out if you're interested. Then if you're watching on YouTube, there's also a join button below this video. That's just kind of a passive way to support the channel, get you early access to the podcast and the videos. So whenever I post them up and schedule them, you get them that day instead of having to wait until they actually go live. So you get some early access to a bunch of stuff, plus some other perks. If you want a more active way to be involved in the channel, you can click on the Patreon page link below, which will get you into our 24/7 Discord that we've got. We do a once-a-month Zoom call, and we do a couple of trips per year in person. So really cool way to be involved and just have more exposure to all things overlanding. And then last but not least, there's a link to the Newbie Overlanders Facebook group. This is totally free to join. Amazing, awesome people in there, different from the big groups because we don't allow bullying or anything like that. So if you're going to be a bully, don't come in. But if you're looking for a place where it's not so negative all the time and you just want to be able to help new folks, or if you are a new person, you want to learn more about overlanding, that's a good place to start. But so again, I hope that was helpful for you, and we look forward to seeing you in Newbie Overlanders, and thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.